A man wakes up when he hears the voice of a girl who says she has been looking for him. She sounds disappointed that he chooses to sleep on a day she considers important. As his senses return, he recognizes the girl as Sanjo Rei. His mind immediately assumes that he is still dreaming, unable to process the situation clearly. Rei notes that he looks strangely awkward, which feels odd to her because in her view they are siblings. She identifies him as Hiro, which startles him so much that he quickly runs to the bathroom. Inside the bathroom, he stares at the mirror and becomes overwhelmed by how irritating his reflection looks to him. Rei urges him to hurry since the family's limousine is already waiting outside. Out of panic and disbelief, he slaps his own face hard enough to make it bleed, hoping pain can confirm whether any of this is real. The pain convinces him that this is not a dream. Rei notices his confused behavior and wonders what is wrong with him. At that moment, he finally grasps what has happened to him. He has become Sanjo Hiro, the most despised and disruptive male character in a certain game that has gained attention recently. The game is titled Everything for the Score, commonly known as ESCO. While the game is not widely popular, it is considered a masterpiece among fans of Yuri titles. Its primary goal is to lead the protagonist toward happiness with one of the heroines. One of the main settings of the game is Hoju Magic Academy. ESCO includes an unusually detailed simulation system, something rare in a Yuri game. The MC spends most of his time customizing weapons and magic, shaping the character's abilities in different ways that directly influence the story and prevent repetition. Even though he never fully understands why the game is structured as a Yuri game, all its elements blend together remarkably well. The four main heroines are adorable, and even the side characters are charming enough to make players want to date them. Because of this, the MC plays every day, collecting every CG, unlocking every story script, and even reading the art book. The only thing that consistently ruins the experience is Sanjo Hiro, the unwanted male presence who interferes with the Yuri relationships. Many players give ESCO poor ratings solely because of Hiro's existence. He appears far too often for a Yuri title, and is involved in almost every negative event in the game. Even the in-game characters despise him. After the MC finishes all the available routes, he leaves home and heads to a convenience store, exhausted but satisfied. On his way, he notices a couple standing at a crosswalk while a speeding truck approaches them. His body freezes for a moment and panic rises in his chest. But he cannot allow a tragic fate to befall a pair of girls who represent the kind of bond he has supported throughout the game. Driven by instinct, he runs onto the crosswalk and pushes the couple to safety. That is the last moment he clearly remembers. From the way things unfold afterward, he assumes he died and then reincarnated. Inside the limousine, Rei reminds him that the Sanjo family's banquet is starting soon. She instructs Hiro not to disturb any of the invited guests, and even refers to him as nothing more than a decorative presence. She also warns him to keep silent except during the dining session. If he behaves strangely again, she says he will only earn an additional label, implying that his reputation could worsen even further. The MC, now inhabiting Hiro's role, notices the cold and distant gaze directed at him and immediately understands that the person standing before him is Sanjo Rei, Hiro's younger sister and one of the four main heroines of the game. In Rei's route, the narrative focuses heavily on the internal conflict over succession within the Sanjo family. Unlike the other routes, this one presents Hiro as a cunning figure who treats his younger sister harshly. As the story progresses into its second arc, Rei eventually kills Hiro through manipulative means. The MC always agrees that the in-game hero deserves that fate because of his own actions, but now that he has become Hiro himself, he absolutely does not want the story to move toward that same outcome. After some time on the road, the limousine finally arrives at a certain location. The MC, still acting as Hiro, assumes that he has been placed somewhere in the middle of the storyline, because it would be unlikely for all relationships to reset just because of a reincarnation. From Rei's expression alone, he finds no trace of affection, which convinces him to take the safest approach possible so that she does not grow irritated with him. Rei instructs Hiro to behave more politely. She reminds him that even though he is nothing more than a decorative presence within the family, he still stands as a representative of the Sanjo household. The MC interprets this as an immediate warning shot. If he is ignored coldly, it might even resemble Hiro's usual behavior, which could help him avoid suspicion for now. Wanting to shift the atmosphere, he decides to compliment Rei, describing her as a beautiful and exceptionally kind girl. The words escape before he can stop them, and he instantly recognizes that he has spoken too honestly. Trying to recover, he takes out a bandage and gently attaches it to the back of Rei's hand. Rei questions the purpose of this unexpected gesture. Hiro explains that it is a repayment for the handkerchief she previously handed him so he could wipe the blood from his injured face. He also mentions that he noticed her hand looked hurt earlier. The skin appeared red, and she seemed to wince when adjusting her wristwatch. He adds that she might not feel comfortable attending an important event with her hand in that condition. Rei grows increasingly confused by his behavior. Hiro clarifies that he is merely showing normal concern for her well-being, emphasizing that her elegant hands are something important for her future as a young woman. His words only deepen Rei's confusion. Meanwhile, the bodyguards react with alarm, distressed that Hiro has given Rei something they consider cheap and inappropriate. They attempt to remove the bandage and replace it with something more suitable, but Rei refuses. She knows that Hiro, known for his teasing nature, almost never does anything like this, so she chooses to keep the bandage as a small personal keepsake. Seeing her accept the gesture, Hiro interprets her reaction as a positive sign. He begins to feel more confident, believing his quick thinking has worked in his favor. He further adds that the gesture is not a joke, claiming that paying taxes and protecting Yuri relationships are duties of every Japanese citizen. One of the bodyguards immediately suggests that Hiro should seek medical evaluation, while Rei decides this situation is wasting her time. She then instructs the bodyguards to leave with her, ending the moment and moving on. They enter a luxurious building filled with an impressive number of guests, and the MC, still acting as Hiro, cannot help feeling overwhelmed by the scale of the event. As he takes in the atmosphere, he notices that seeing girls openly dating other girls is treated as something entirely ordinary here. Couples embrace freely in public without attracting attention. To him, the sight feels like a paradise, a clear confirmation that this world truly operates under the same rules as Esco. He also notices that men exist in this society, yet they function only as background elements, similar to stones by the roadside or carbon dioxide in the air. Hiro himself occupies the same status. Although he is technically the son of the main Sanjo family, Rei is the one destined to become the family's successor. Hiro, meanwhile, is present only to fulfill a formal requirement, which is why not a single person greets him or acknowledges his existence. He finds this completely reasonable because his presence is merely decorative. While drinking, Hiro notices Rei subtly trying to conceal the bandage he placed on her hand. He wonders whether this reaction means her affection toward him might be decreasing. As he reaches for a sandwich, a small child suddenly swings an object toward his hand, nearly stabbing him. The unexpected attack startles him, leaving him shocked and irritated. He feels justified in his annoyance because the child's reckless action is genuinely dangerous. Before he can fully process his frustration, someone calls out to him. He turns and realizes the person addressing him is his great-grandmother, the oldest member of the Sanjo family, and the one silently manipulating everything behind the scenes. She instructs him to enroll in Hoju Magic Academy starting next year. Hiro becomes confused about why he, of all people, must attend. His great-grandmother, however, asserts that he has no right to refuse. Hoju Academy is the central setting of Esco, which means he might eventually encounter the protagonist there. His great-grandmother observes his relaxed expression and concludes that he has not yet grasped the gravity of the situation. As Hiro looks around, he senses an overwhelming murderous intent emanating from many of the people in the room. Their expressions seem to carry a silent desire to kill him. His great-grandmother explains that he previously demanded money from various branch families while falsely using the authority of the Sanjo name. Numerous reports claim he pressured them aggressively, resulting in a level of hatred so intense that no one would object if he were killed. The MC realizes that even outside the game's scripted events, Hiro is still an awful person whose behavior has brought him to this dangerous point. His great-grandmother continues by stating that sending him to Hoju Academy will allow him to learn magic and live independently, enabling him to recover some dignity. With the main Sanjo family supporting him, she assures him that no one would dare to harm him. However, the MC finds this explanation unconvincing. In his understanding, this plan mirrors the scenario he remembers from the game, where placing Hiro in the academy makes it easier for the family to eliminate him. Even though she appears to be supporting him, the MC feels her intentions are deceptive, and he cannot determine what her true motives are. From the events of the banquet alone, the MC reaches a clear conclusion. Sanjo Hiro possesses the same death flags that exist in the original game. The great-grandmother and numerous branch families display a genuine desire to kill him. Rei's affection level is also extremely low, although she has not shown any intent to eliminate him yet. Based on these observations, the MC becomes convinced that if he allows everything to proceed naturally, Hiro will be murdered exactly as in the original storyline. He makes up his mind that he must somehow avoid this fate. However, he has yet to determine an effective plan, especially since Hiro's death in the game involves more than just the Sanjo family. Other characters contribute to that outcome as well. Because of this, he realizes he must take the initiative from this point forward, acting before anyone else moves against him. While Hiro is deep in thought, he suddenly senses an intent to kill directed at him. The realization strikes him immediately. An assassination team has arrived. The MC, still inhabiting Hiro's body, becomes curious about the identity of the young woman in a maid uniform who approaches him. He does not recognize her from the game's character roster, leading him to assume that she must be an ordinary NPC created only to fill the background of this world. The maid looks visibly upset, perhaps feeling that she has failed at something. Hiro wonders what her purpose here is, and she reveals that she has been instructed by his great-grandmother to deliver a magic device. Only then does Hiro fully understand what his great-grandmother meant when she claimed to be supporting him. Her so-called support is the delivery of that device. In the world of Esco, magic can only be activated through specific tools. The device handed to him is called Kukumasamian, a unique artifact that can only be obtained from Hiro if someone kills him and takes it by force. Anyone who equips the device will immediately fall into a bad route, unable to build romantic links with any heroine. Because of this, the MC never used the device for long when he played the game. However, he knows very well that Kukumasamian itself is actually powerful. The maid observes Hiro with a puzzled expression, possibly confused about why the blade she expects to see is missing. Hiro explains that the blade is created entirely through magic. He feels relieved that the activation spell is still stored within the device, believing he can show off a little by using it. Yet when he attempts to summon its true form, the magic blade fails to appear. Confusion grows as he tries to understand what is wrong. A status screen then manifests in front of him, revealing the device's internal condition. The MC learns that the interface is severely damaged. In its current state, the magic sword cannot be activated at all. There are many problems listed, but the most critical one is the lack of combat capability. To fix this, he needs to increase its output, and the only way to do that is by going into a dungeon. Just as he prepares to leave, the maid stops him. He expresses his gratitude for her assistance and excuses himself, insisting that he intends to take a walk outside at night. He slips out through the back door, but the maid follows him closely. Meanwhile, he decides that his first stop should be a convenience store. Hearing this, the maid mutters an insult toward him, calling him foolish. Irritation rises within Hiro, especially since he dislikes being mocked. Wanting to shift the conversation, Hiro suddenly asks whether there is a girl the maid likes. The maid becomes confused, unsure whether he is giving a lecture or trying to start a story about romance. Hiro continues pressing the topic, admitting he is interested in hearing her Yuri-related situation. The maid eventually realizes he is indeed steering the conversation toward love. Before addressing that, the maid clarifies her earlier insult. According to her, it is not random at all. It is payback because Hiro once bullied one of her fellow maids. She even challenges him to fire her if he wants, stating she is not afraid of losing her position. The MC finds himself annoyed again, thinking about how effortlessly the original Hiro managed to disgust him every single time. Recognizing his own wrongs, Hiro decides to take responsibility. He apologizes sincerely and expresses his intention to apologize directly to the maid he once mistreated. The maid is visibly surprised by this unexpected admission. Hiro asks her to relay the message, explaining that it is already late at night and meeting the person tomorrow will be acceptable. Hiro proceeds toward the administrative sector of the Tokyo area, intending to enter the facility that manages the region. As he approaches the entrance, a floating cubic security guardian intercepts him and requests his entry permit. After a brief moment of verification, the guardian recognizes him as a member of the Sanjo family. It explains that it has already received prior instructions, allowing Hiro to pass without undergoing any additional checks. Hiro immediately suspects that this, too, is part of his great-grandmother's influence and preparation. A magical gate materializes soon after, accompanied by a welcoming system voice that signals his entry into a dungeon. These dungeons function as anomalous points scattered across various parts of the world, each serving as a passage to an alternate realm inhabited by dangerous creatures. Hiro steps through the gate and enters the Tokyo sector, specifically the abandoned line station dungeon. He understands that what matters now is simply stepping inside, because the real battles begin from this point forward. Unexpectedly, the same maid from earlier follows him into the dungeon. Her sudden appearance prompts Hiro to wonder why she is accompanying him, and he again thinks about asking her name. The maid, however, seems more interested in questioning his motives. She speculates in an exaggerated manner, assuming he entered the dungeon because he has grown bored with human women and is now considering developing an interest in monsters. Hiro realizes she still refuses to answer his questions directly. He begins explaining his situation regarding Hujum Magic Academy, and he points out that leaving things unchanged means he will be unable to use Kukumasamune at all. Because of this, he intends to defeat monsters to collect drop items that could repair the damaged console. At the same time, he can gather experience points to prepare for future conflicts. The maid clarifies that physical attacks are ineffective against monsters unless they are infused with magic, and such magic can only be activated through a device. She asks whether a standard console can be purchased using score points. Hiro answers that he cannot buy one, but he suddenly remembers that the device allows him to view his score status. In the world of ESCO, every action, achievements, contributions, daily behavior, and overall societal value is recorded numerically as score. Higher numbers translate into higher ranks, which grant better privileges and access to more resources. When Hiro checks his total accumulated score, the number displayed is 0. The result shocks him, and frustration quickly follows as he reviews the long list of reasons that reduced his score to nothing. The maid reminds him that in this region, all payments rely on score, meaning that even purchasing basic necessities becomes difficult. Acquiring an expensive console is nearly impossible. Hiro adds that with 0 score, he cannot use Kukumasamune at all, so he plans to rely on a wooden club instead. The maid finds it surprising that even an item as simple as a wooden club is available for purchase, but she also admits she is not shocked that Hiro's score is 0. Hiro feels the need to defend himself, insisting it is not entirely his fault. The maid grows suspicious, explaining that the hero she knows never trains, never takes responsibility, and certainly never apologizes to anyone. She begins questioning whether he is truly Hiro or someone else entirely. To address her doubt, Hiro explains that his apology might have startled her, yet every change in behavior must begin somewhere. He mentions having once seen Hyakkaheim and describes how the encounter left his mind empty, though he eventually grew accustomed to it. As he observes her reactions, Hiro wonders whether he has managed to conceal the truth well enough. Despite assuming she is merely a background character in this world, he decides he cannot afford to let his guard down around her. A small knight suddenly appears, and the MC immediately considers it a fairly heavy opponent for a first encounter. Even so, the MC still believes that a single enemy of that size can be handled slowly and carefully. The situation shifts instantly when multiple small knights materialize at once, forming a crowd that surrounds them. The maid recognizes the danger first, and concludes that the situation is becoming unfavorable. Hiro feels confused about why he is suddenly being overwhelmed like this, and the maid urges him to retreat before the number of enemies increases further. Before they manage to step back, a woman appears out of nowhere and orders both Hiro and the maid to move aside. She proceeds to annihilate every small knight with overwhelming force, clearing the area in a matter of moments. When she finishes, she studies Hiro and the maid, questioning whether the two of them are beginners inside the dungeon. Hiro immediately recognizes her and wonders why someone like her would be in a place like this. The woman, Lapis Cruel Lalamet, is one of the 4 main heroines. She is an elf princess from a nation far wealthier than the Sanjo family. Technically, she is not a character Hiro should be able to meet before entering the academy, and the MC personally does not want to encounter her this early in the storyline. She is known as the girl with the highest execution rate toward Hiro in the entire world of ESCO. The MC remembers clearly that Hero once lost his life simply for eating her stored ice cream. Lapis explains that she helps out of reflex, but she hesitates once she realizes that Hero is a boy. She begins questioning whether she should have assisted him in the first place. Her expression shifts when she finally notices Hero's total score, which displays an absolute 0. She then advises him to return home immediately, and even offers to escort him to the entrance to ensure he does not get killed on the way out. Hero responds by deciding to follow her advice and head back, but Lapis stops him, demanding that he wait instead of running away so casually. She questions whether Hero understands how dangerous his current situation is. Hero insists that he does and asks her not to follow him, claiming that staying near her only increases the chance of him dying. Lapis reacts by questioning who Hero thinks she is. Hero becomes flustered, blurts out a careless description of her, and unintentionally labels her as an elf wearing clothing similar to something indecent. Lapis becomes irritated and insists that she is wearing formal attire, instructing Hero not to look at her body so directly. Hero is shocked by her reaction. Lapis then mentions that her total score is 30,000, making her far above average. She advises Hero to ask for help politely if he needs anything. The MC personally enjoys the way Lapis casually jokes and interacts with the protagonist in the original storyline, but the atmosphere becomes awkward when she directs similar energy toward Hero, who now functions as the MC's in-world identity. Because Hero stays silent, Lapis assumes he fails to understand her point and challenges him to a duel. The maid immediately steps in front of Hero, apologizing on his behalf and promising to scold him in private. Hero declares that he accepts the duel and sets a condition. If he wins, he requests Lapis's console. Lapis confidently responds that if she loses, Hero may take everything she possesses, though she firmly believes defeat is impossible. Hero hands his wooden club to the maid and asks her to hold it for a moment. The maid becomes alarmed and reminds him that Lapis is a famous archer, advising him to withdraw from the duel entirely. Hero responds calmly, knowing full well what Lapis is capable of. He has experienced countless moments of trial and error in attempts to defeat her in the past, and he believes that knowledge gives him an edge. The maid is utterly confused by his reasoning. Lapis instructs him to use the club or any other tool if he wishes. As a handicap, she promises not to move from her current spot and grants him 10 seconds to attack her however he wants. Hero steps forward with determination, prompting Lapis to consider him reckless for charging carelessly. In that moment, she notices something crucial. Hero has forgotten to equip his device. One of the main reasons Hero desires Lapis's console is because it is an exceptionally rare device, but more importantly, he knows that her console can be mounted onto his Kukumasimian. With that in mind, he makes up his mind to acquire it no matter what methods he must use. He understands that Lapis is easily provoked, highly reactive, and possesses specifications far superior to most people. She is not suited for close combat, yet her baseline stats place her well above the average, making her far from weak. A frontal battle against her leaves his chances nearly non-existent. Even so, Hero believes that Lapis would never attack someone unarmed, and he uses that assumption to build his plan. At the first opportunity, Hero quickly grabs Lapis's console and swaps it with his own broken one before she notices. He then pushes Lapis slightly, causing her to interpret the gesture as mockery, which immediately triggers her temper. She decides she will no longer restrain herself. When she reaches for her console to fight back, she discovers that the device no longer functions. Meanwhile, Hero attaches her console to his sword, allowing his weapon to activate properly. Hero acknowledges internally that Lapis is undeniably strong, but he also notes a consistent trait. Once something occurs outside her expectations, she freezes momentarily. He concludes that her old habits remain unchanged. Using that opening, Hero launches a sudden attack that catches her completely off guard. He declares victory, but Lapis refuses to accept it because she notices that Hero's own device is technically unusable. Hero explains that the device currently working in his hands functions only because he is using her console. He clarifies that he borrowed her console for a moment when passing by her, and that the broken one she is holding now is actually his. Lapis accuses him of cheating. While this exchange happens, the maid continues fighting off stray small knights using the wooden club. Hero insists that concepts such as fairness or unfairness do not exist in real combat. He also states that there is no rule forbidding the removal of an opponent's console during a fight. In his view, Lapis is at fault for underestimating her opponent and carelessly holding back. When Lapis falls silent, Hero assumes she has no further complaints and reminds her of her promise. He is entitled to take all her items. Lapis becomes emotional, frustrated, and eventually begins to cry, prompting Hero to reconsider. He decides to take only a single item instead. The maid, who witnesses the situation, comments that Hero is acting differently than usual. She prepares herself mentally to punish Hero as a form of apology for his behavior. Hero becomes uneasy when he sees the maid's wooden club soaked in blood. She explains calmly that she has been dealing with multiple small knights approaching during the duel. Seeing that Lapis is still crying, Hero panics. He knows how easily she can kill him if he missteps. To calm her down, he returns the console to its rightful owner, and Lapis begins to settle. Hero expresses gratitude for her guidance, and then prepares to leave with the maid. Before he can depart, Lapis demands another duel, this time with complete seriousness. Hero immediately refuses. He admits to himself that he managed to win earlier only by relying on a combination of luck and timing. Still, he feels relieved that he successfully avoids Lapis's bad route and manages to reactivate his Kukumasamian. All of this becomes possible because the MC has completed Esco in his previous life. With that knowledge, he plans to avoid every death flag and live as a version of Hero who stays out of the heroine's Yuri entanglements, giving them space to pursue their relationships freely. Hero apologizes and surrenders, openly admitting defeat. Lapis refuses to accept that outcome and suspects he is intentionally losing on purpose. She draws her bow and insists that Hero face her seriously. Meanwhile, Hero pleads for mercy, fearing the very real possibility that she might kill him. As a result, he is more than ready to surrender entirely. Inside the Deadline Station dungeon of the Tokyo area, Hero continues cutting down waves of small monsters using the Kukumasamian, which is now equipped with the console he seized in his duel with Lapis. He moves quickly between groups of enemies, focusing on gathering as much experience as possible and securing useful drop items. Only a day has passed since his sudden reincarnation, and he immediately resumes exploring deeper into the dungeon. As long as he has the Kukumasamian, the journey becomes noticeably easier, and because of that he feels genuinely grateful toward Lapis. He also feels satisfied that the consoles he has collected so far are finally usable. Hero eventually reaches the deepest floor of the Deadline Station dungeon. Once he arrives, he decides it is time to activate proper strengthening magic. As he turns around, he finds the maid standing close behind him, which makes him wonder why she followed him again. The maid admits she has never gone this deep into a dungeon before. Hero mentions that he already apologized to the maid's friend earlier and asks whether there is still some unresolved issue. She says nothing at first and simply pouts in silence before urging Hero to look toward one of the platform pillars. When he looks in the direction she indicates, he discovers Lapis hiding behind that very pillar. Hero becomes confused and calls out to her. Lapis responds by acting as if she is meeting him for the first time today. Since they have encountered each other there, she expresses her intention to challenge Hero to another duel, but Hero immediately rejects the idea. He already understands the reason behind Lapis's insistence. She wants revenge for yesterday's defeat. Because Hero continues turning down the duel, Lapis shifts the topic and questions how he even managed to enter the dungeon in the first place. With a score of 0, the management normally would not grant him entry. Hero explains that he has internal connections and that those ties allow him to bypass the normal approval process. In reality, entering any dungeon requires an official permit from the governing organization, but due to the Sanjo family's influence, he can access it without difficulty. Hero reiterates that yesterday's duel is already settled. He also reminds Lapis that, as an elf princess, being seen talking with a boy while dressed in revealing clothing would be extremely risky for her reputation. Lapis counters that losing repeatedly to someone with a score of 0 is far worse for her than being spotted with a boy. To her, being seen with a male is about as trivial as noticing an insect passing by. Hero interprets that comparison literally and considers himself equivalent to an insect, which he believes should make the situation harmless. Lapis clarifies that looking down on boys is a normal custom for her, and not anything she specifically directs at Hero. She adds that she does not harbor any excessive prejudice against him. Hero takes it as an unexpected honor that he is able to converse casually with someone like Lapis. She, however, states that no matter how much reputation, humility, or pretended politeness is mentioned, she will not give up on the duel easily. Hero realizes she will not stop following him, leading him to remark internally that she behaves like someone from a warrior tribe. Lapis then tells him to take his position quickly. Seeing that he cannot avoid this any longer, Hero accepts his fate and prepares himself, deciding that he will let Lapis hit him until she is satisfied. Although Lapis places herself in a ready stance, she reflects that she has no particular interest in bullying someone weaker than herself. However, the way Hero fought yesterday remains stuck in her mind, and because of that lingering impression, she is determined to confront him again here in the depths of the dungeon. From the darkened chamber ahead, a massive greatsword suddenly emerges, cutting through the shadows with overwhelming force. The moment Hero notices it, he instinctively moves closer to Lapis. She misinterprets his movement, assuming he is attempting another underhanded surprise attack, and reacts with immediate suspicion. Before she can accuse him further, Hero raises his voice and urges her to lower herself. He then lifts her into his arms and directs his Kukumasamyan toward the source of the incoming threat. As he steadies himself, he finally sees the figure wielding the enormous sword. It is an exceptionally rare encounter, one of the sudden dungeon events that occasionally appear, where the system throws a powerful enemy far beyond the expected difficulty. The towering knight-type monster is clad entirely in Geist armor. Hero remembers that creatures like this are vengeful spirits formed from the accumulated hatred of fallen knight-type monsters. He also suspects that this particular one materializes because Lapis exterminated an overwhelming number of petit knights the previous day. Lapis then insists that Hero put her down, claiming that she can stand on her own. Hero apologizes and releases her carefully. He notices that her waist is still weak, making it difficult for her to support her body. Yet he knows mentioning this would only provoke her irritation, so he chooses to stay quiet. The monster, of course, does not wait for Lapis to recover. Hero immediately tells the maid to head toward the exit first. The maid, already anticipating the danger, states that she is leaving without needing any instruction. Hero finds the Geist armor especially troublesome due to its abnormally high defense, made worse by Lapis's weakened state. He considers that escaping might be the best strategy for now. He connects his console, generates a magical surface layer, transmutes muscle and bone, strengthens his nerves and optic channels, and activates the layered formulas. He initiates Tenebrae, a projection enhancement spell used for retreating. Lapis is startled when she sees him employ Tenebrae. In the world of Esco, magic exists only through specific console combinations, and Hero manages to activate it because he previously obtained a magic layer drop item. He urges Lapis to run with him because the monster is overwhelmingly strong. The dungeon system prevents monsters from pursuing intruders into different floors, so retreating remains a viable option, at least in theory. However, the armored knight suddenly hurls its giant shield across the chamber, shattering the exit in a single impact. Hero realizes the situation is becoming much more troublesome. With escape no longer possible, he decides they must confront the monster directly. Lapis struggles to push herself upright and surprisingly finds that she can stand again. She questions whether they can still run, but Hero calculates that he will deplete his mana long before a successful escape becomes possible. He also notes that no dimension gate has appeared for a safe exit, meaning he cannot simply ignore this ironclad threat. Hero then proposes continuing their duel with the monster itself as the stake. If Lapis manages to defeat it, she wins. Lapis immediately recognizes the impossibility of overcoming such a creature. Hero taunts her, pointing out that someone with a score of 30,000 should not lose her courage so easily. As expected, the provocation ignites Lapis's competitive nature. She considers Hero outrageous, yet she still admits she cannot move freely. Hero offers to act as her support, positioning himself as her foothold so she can strike the monster directly in the face. Lapis points out that cooperating like this technically stops it from being a duel, but Hero claims that the interpretation depends entirely on her perspective. As someone with a score of 0, he does not know the finer rules of dueling, but what matters to him is preventing her from dying here. Lapis demands to know what he truly means by this. Hero responds only with a sharp, confident grin, signaling that he is ready to follow through with whatever reckless plan he has in mind. Hero lifts Lapis into his arms and Lapis immediately takes control of their movements, guiding him with sharp instructions while trying to maintain her composure. They move in unison toward the towering monster, coordinating their attacks as best as they can despite the clear disadvantage. After several attempts, both of them realize that striking the monster's armor is almost pointless because its outer shell is far too durable to break through with direct force. Recognizing this, Hero shifts his strategy. He directs Lapis to focus her attacks on the narrow openings between the pieces of armor, hoping that precise strikes will have a greater impact. Lapis follows his assessment and aims for those gaps, channeling all her remaining strength toward the weak points hidden beneath the metallic layers. Their efforts begin to show small but meaningful results, yet the damage they inflict remains insufficient to bring the monster down. Seeing this, Hero decides to assist Lapis in a more aggressive way. He positions her for a better angle and suddenly throws her toward the monster, a move that catches her completely off guard. Lapis lands perfectly atop the creature's head, balancing herself as she prepares to strike again. At the same moment, Hero continues attacking the exposed joints and crevices of the armor, forcing the monster into repeated staggered reactions. Their combined assault becomes relentless, each hit pushing the creature closer to its limit. Lapis then unleashes the final blow with all the strength she can muster, and the monster collapses into ruins, defeated at last. Hero sinks to the ground after the battle, watching the remains of the fallen creature scatter across the dungeon floor. Lapis runs toward him, filled with exhilaration from their victory, and wraps her arms around him with genuine joy. She feels triumphant and relieved, yet she still wonders whether Hero truly has a score of 0. Hero begins to sway, overwhelmed by the massive amount of mana he has expended, and eventually he collapses from exhaustion. While struggling to stay conscious, he states that the outcome is now clear. This victory belongs entirely to Lapis, because without her contribution, defeating that monster would have been impossible. Lapis responds with her own assessment, believing that it is also thanks to Hero that she does not have to deal with the trouble of reporting his death. She remains confused, however, because Hero has carried absolute confidence in her since the beginning, even at the cost of letting himself get beaten up. She questions where that unwavering faith comes from. Hero explains that relying on her is only natural, considering that her score is 30,000. Before they can say anything more, the maid arrives and urges them to defeat the boss on the deepest floor, since the dimension gate lies inside the boss's chamber. Lapis agrees and invites Hero to come along, but Hero, still weakened, asks her to go on ahead because he has reached his limit. Lapis pauses and asks for Hero's name. He gives the false name Yamada Taro, which confuses the maid, but she chooses to support his lie without hesitation. Lapis laughs lightly at the name, remarking on how unusual it sounds for a guy. Hero internally feels relieved, believing that by using a fake name, the event chain involving Lapis should now be resolved. The maid, still committed to her role, warns Lapis not to get too close to Taro because he is supposedly a shameless flirt who enjoys teasing women. Lapis casually adds that his score is 0 as well. Hero watches the two interact and is surprised by how quickly they become comfortable with each other despite meeting only the day before. He begins to suspect that Lapis and the maid are using him merely as a convenient excuse to spend time together. This realization unexpectedly amuses him. For the first time, he feels like he is witnessing the atmosphere of a true Yuri game, and he privately celebrates having encountered his first real pairing. Seeing Hero behave oddly, Lapis wonders whether he is alright, and the maid explains that Hero occasionally falls into strange moods like this. Lapis then moves on to defeat the boss at the lowest floor with a single overwhelming attack, clearing the path for all of them. With the boss eliminated and the dimension gate active, they finally manage to escape the dungeon safely. A few days later, Hero returns to his usual routine, continuing the habit he maintains every morning, jogging at a steady pace as part of his daily training. It is something he has been doing long before his reincarnation, and it remains a constant part of his lifestyle even now. While running along the familiar route, he accidentally bumps into a girl. The impact causes her to fall forward and land on top of another girl who happens to be right in front of her. The first girl quickly apologizes, while the second one brushes the incident off and even seems pleased rather than bothered. Every morning, Hero, or the MC, keeps jogging like this, a practice he still considers essential. Even in a world shaped like a Yuri game, endurance remains important because physical capability influences how well one can handle battles and unexpected encounters. In ESCO, the strength of a magic user depends either on personal ability or on the character's numerical status. For Hero, stamina stands out as his most prominent attribute on his status screen, making physical exercises especially relevant to him. In contrast, mana is the most critical resource for anyone relying on magic. Even if one owns an excellent device, low mana results in weak output and rapid exhaustion. Raising one's score is another method that can increase status values. But even though Hero defeated a rare monster several days ago, his score remains at 0, making that path effectively useless for him. Because of this, he decides to abandon that idea altogether. The only reliable way left to increase his mana is through consistent practice. Hero attempts a training method that combines running with body reinforcement magic, hoping to improve both mana efficiency and physical coordination. Unfortunately, his mana supply is too depleted today, so he resigns himself to ordinary jogging without magical enhancement. Along the route, Hero notices long-eared elf mobs. Their presence makes him feel uneasy because they appear to be watching him with curiosity. A moment later, he spots the maid hiding awkwardly behind an electric pole. Hero immediately recognizes her, though she tries to deny her identity by claiming to be a different maid entirely. He easily sees through the disguise and assumes she is simply joking. Hero understands why the maid might be trying to hide, but he cannot decipher the reason the elves keep staring at him, as if discussing something unusual about him. Their coordinated presence feels strange, almost as though they are observing him deliberately. He eventually heads home, feeling warm from the exercise and wanting something to drink. When he steps inside, he is unexpectedly greeted by the sight of Lapis wearing her casual indoor clothes. She immediately scolds him for running for 2 hours straight. She explains that she has been waiting outside and would have continued waiting if not for her guards who intervened. Hero, shocked by her presence in his home, asks why she is here in the first place. Lapis explains that Hero's personal information is very easy to find because there are not many nobles with the unusual combination of low score and dungeon access. Despite his 0 score, he still manages to smile confidently and lie without hesitation. Hero finds the situation even stranger because he has no idea how Lapis managed to enter the house. She reveals that the maid let her in, and Hero only then realizes the maid has already returned home. The maid still holds a grudge against him for discovering her disguise earlier. Hero begins to suspect that the elves he encountered on the jogging route are actually Lapis's bodyguards. Lapis confirms that they are Alf, elite royal guards from the elf kingdom of Alfheim, and they serve as her personal protection unit. Hero recalls that this same group appears in the game as well, a squad of 12 beautiful elf warriors who normally only show up when Lapis is under attack. In the game, any male character who approaches Lapis during such moments usually gets overwhelmed by them immediately. Lapis notices Hero drifting into his imagination and assumes he is thinking strange thoughts. She reassures him that the Alpha are only accompanying her and that she simply has personal matters to settle. Hero asks what those matters are, prompting Lapis to inquire about the location of his room. He tells her it is in the corner of the 2nd floor. She responds by mentioning her preference for corners too, and then casually reveals that her room is right next to his. Hero is left bewildered and asks again why she is here. He also insists that she should return home because, according to basic moral lessons, it is improper for a girl to enter a guy's house so casually. Lapis states calmly that she is beginning to live here starting today. Hero is stunned. She explains that since they worked together previously and achieved a tangible result, she has decided that living with Hero will make it easier to continue their duels. She also warns him not to run away from her. Lapis recognizes the name Hero as belonging to the Sanjo family. Hero begins to think Lapis is acting completely unreasonable. Meanwhile, in another place, a girl observes the situation and finds Lapis's behavior strange, especially the fact that Lapis wants a rematch against an opponent who turns out to be a human boy. This revelation sparks her competitive interest. She recognizes that Lapis's opponent is none other than Sanjo Hero. On this particular day, Lapis and her 12 Alpha guards begin settling into Hero's house. The Alpha immediately regard the place as small compared to the accommodations they are accustomed to, even though the property is undeniably spacious by ordinary standards. Lapis relies on Hero to help carry her luggage, and Hero reluctantly assists while trying to understand how his life has shifted into something unexpectedly chaotic. Although he currently lives alone in this large residence, he knows that the house will eventually belong to Rei, the heir of the Sanjo family. Despite its size, Hero has never managed to make full use of the space. A pavilion and a pond sit quietly in front of the house, features that would impress most guests, but now serve only as reminders of how empty the property usually feels. For a brief moment, Hero imagines sharing his burdens with someone else. The thought crosses his mind that perhaps someone might willingly volunteer to live alongside a group of beautiful elf warriors. But in reality, no one has ever requested such a thing. The elves loudly occupy the house, creating constant commotion as they race through hallways and argue over which rooms they want. One elf becomes absorbed in observing the paintings lining the walls, while Hero continues hauling their belongings through doorways and up staircases. As he works, Hero remembers that the Alpha unit is supposed to consist of one additional member assigned to protect Lapis. He has not seen this person anywhere. The thought lingers in his mind as he resumes carrying more items. Meanwhile, the elves show no hesitation, living as though the home is already theirs. One even bathes comfortably and calls out for Hero to bring her shampoo. When Hero opens the bathroom door and unexpectedly finds two elf women bathing inside, he reacts with a neutral expression. His lack of surprise confuses them, since they have only heard rumors that Hero is some sort of playboy. Their assumptions do not align with the calm demeanor he displays. Unbeknownst to him, one elf quietly observes his movements from a distance, watching how he manages the chaos. Eventually, Lapis calls for Hero and asks for a moment of his time. She wants to understand the household rules so that she and the Alpha can adapt properly. As she explores the house, she notes the location of the tatami room and realizes that although she prefers that space, she cannot sleep unless she has an actual bed. She discovers that both suitable rooms happen to be in the corner of the second floor, exactly where Hero's room is located. She intends to switch rooms with him. Before she can say more, Hero instinctively retreats toward the back of the house. Lapis assumes that agreeing to the room exchange would benefit Hero as well, especially because the Alpha would assist with the move. While she continues discussing this possibility, Hero rushes outside. Behind the house, he attempts to activate his physical reinforcement again, but finds himself unable to. The sensation leaves him wondering what kind of development he has stumbled into, because it feels strangely similar to the kind of opening scene found in a game event. He questions why so many major events seem to revolve around him specifically. The memory of Lapis casually proposing that she live together with him resurfaces, a suggestion he still finds entirely unreasonable. He decides to leave that problem for later. Hero recalls that according to how these events usually unfold, an administrator character should be accompanying Lapis and the Alpha. Yet even after checking multiple times during the moving process, he has not seen the admin anywhere. He begins to suspect that the admin might appear during dinner. A glance at his watch reveals that evening is approaching, prompting him to prepare a luxurious meal for Lapis and the Alpha. He also decides that when the admin finally shows up, he should present himself as someone who gets along well with Lapis. At some point, Hero finds himself standing in the garden without realizing how he ended up there. He assumes that by following the jogging path, he should still be able to return to the villa where Lapis previously stayed before dinner begins. Meanwhile, Lapis steps outside, intending to search for Hero. The Alpha asks about her purpose, and Hero becomes certain there must be a predictable pattern at play, one where Lapis inevitably appears from that very direction. As Hero tries to find his way back home through the jogging trail, he becomes increasingly uncertain about the route he is taking. In the middle of that confusion, someone suddenly appears from behind, approaching him with the assumption that Hero is the powerful individual who manages to defeat Lapis. This person inspects Hero's status and score, immediately noticing how low they are, yet still recalls that Lapis, who hates losing more than anything, acknowledges Hero. Because of that, the newcomer decides to judge Hero's strength directly, believing that no one surpasses their own power. Hero wonders why this person is even here, in such an unexpected place. The individual introduces themselves as a Stemmel Cruel La Curlicia, and their presence is clearly motivated by a growing interest in Hero. A Stemmel serves as Lapis's guardian as well as her instructor, and is known throughout the elven nation of Alfheim as the strongest fighter among all elves. Within the world of Esco, Astemel appears only briefly at the beginning of Lapis's route as a support character. Even with such minimal presence, Astemel is established as Hero's enemy, someone who eliminates him without hesitation. In the game, Astemel kills Hero easily, treating him as nothing more than an insect approaching Lapis with ill intent. Now, the greatest taboo in Hero's life stands directly in front of him. Astemel suddenly demands a fight, but Hero refuses. He explains that his previous victory is nothing more than luck, made possible only because he switches Lapis's console. MC immediately senses that Astemel's demeanor feels different from before. Without warning, Astemel orders Hero to prepare himself, and Hero senses a genuine killing intent radiating from Astemel. Astemel launches a sudden attack. Hero blocks it using Tenebrae, managing to defend against the strike despite being hit hard afterward. Had he failed to block it, he would be sliced in half. Astemel becomes impressed that Hero can evade such an attack, while Hero, on the other hand, is even more astonished after realizing that Astemel is only using a tree branch. Astemel drops the branch and decides to continue the assault with actual blades. In the world of Esco, players unanimously consider Astemel the strongest character. Elves typically specialize in long-range combat, excelling in mana and agility, but lacking in stamina and physical strength. Astemel, however, surpasses every elf and every character in all attributes, with the highest stat growth in the entire game and no weaknesses in any area of combat. To MC, Astemel is practically a cheat character. Astemel draws 2 swords and urges Hero to continue the duel. Unlike Lapis, Astemel cannot be fooled by simple tricks. With shocking speed, Astemel immediately reappears behind Hero and attacks, forcing Hero into a frantic defense. MC finds Astemel's idea of a warm-up completely unreasonable. When Hero manages to block another strike, his device breaks apart, confirming MC's belief that no normal person should be able to parry that attack. Astemel evaluates Hero's performance as perfect up to this point and declares the warm-up concluded. A swift kick sends Hero backward. As Hero steps away, he sees Astemel shifting into the stance of an II technique. Astemel silently challenges Hero to withstand the next strike. Hero runs, convinced that the incoming attack will kill him. He recognizes the stance as the administrator's signature-ready position, something that guarantees a one-hit slaughter if faced head-on. Hero knows Astemel will never accept surrender, driven by an obsession with battle. Caught between an unwinnable fight and an unavoidable defeat, Hero realizes that his only option is to escape without losing. Astemel suddenly activates a console warp, shocking Hero because a close-range fighter should not have the ability to teleport. Hero concludes that this is pure cheating, yet protesting is pointless against someone like Astemel. With escape becoming impossible, Hero decides his only chance of survival is to evade that lightning-fast attack. If there is any opening to win, it exists only because Astemel continues to restrain his true power. Hero notices that Astemel is not using a device at all, but a simple Japanese sword. Panic strikes him when Astemel teleports again. Still, if Astemel is fighting without a device, it means he cannot fully resist Hero's magic. Hero releases his device's blinding light, forcing Astemel to avert his eyes and dodge the incoming magical emission. Without clear vision, Astemel cannot make a clean strike. Astemel expresses admiration for Hero, noting that Hero manages to blind him at the very last second, forcing Astemel to use more strength than expected. Hero feels insulted, knowing that for someone like Astemel, his magical weapon means almost nothing. Yet Astemel continues praising Hero for limiting the slash to only that extent. Hero becomes confused about Astemel's intent, until he realizes that Astemel has quietly cut his face during the exchange. Astemel calmly concludes that Hero has already responded to each of his attacks with everything he has. With that in mind, Astemel decides that it is time to repay Hero's efforts by showing his true strength. Hero immediately assumes that Astemel will finally use a proper device. Before Hero can prepare himself, Astemel begins chanting a spell, lifting his body into the air while a radiant glow forms around him, circling his entire frame like a controlled storm of light. In one event of the game, Astemel eventually leaves the party, and when that moment arrives, he passes on a special device to Lapis. The device in question is a legendary heirloom arrow known as Iriova's Irima. Seeing Astemel summon that very artifact here, in a situation like this, leaves Hero with no options. His only remaining hope is that Lapis might appear in time to save him. The situation feels catastrophic to him. Astemel is not only confronting him directly, but doing so while activating an heirloom weapon that should never surface under casual circumstances. Hero begins to doubt whether Astemel is even in a rational state of mind. At that moment, Lapis arrives from behind Hero. Astemel notices her presence and questions why she is here, while Lapis explains that Hero's sudden disappearance forces her to search for him. Her attention then shifts to the glowing relic in Astemel's hands. She demands to know why he has drawn the heirloom arrow. Astemel responds lightly, amused, admitting that he brings it out subconsciously due to the excitement of the battle. Lapis becomes irritated because she understands that such an item cannot be used recklessly. Hero internally refers to Lapis as his trump card, the hidden advantage he relies on. Lapis, confused, seeks clarification. Hero recalls how he assumes Lapis will eventually follow him after noticing his sudden escape. His entire survival plan is built on that assumption. He focuses solely on buying enough time for her to arrive before Astemel's true attack is unleashed. Lapis asks Hero to explain everything that has happened. Hero feels triumphant, believing that his gamble succeeds and that he manages to escape the duel alive. In his thoughts, he mocks Astemel for being unable to continue the private battle in the presence of his own princess. Astemel recounts the earlier events for Lapis, allowing her to grasp the full situation. With a laugh, he admits that he suffers an overwhelming defeat, acknowledging that Hero manages to push him so far that he unconsciously draws his heirloom arrow. He then approaches Hero, offering a handshake while declaring that Hero exceeds all his expectations. Astemel believes Hero possesses exceptional potential, to the point that he may even surpass Astemel one day. Hero silently questions whether surpassing someone as impossibly overpowered as Astemel is even conceivable. Astemel then extends an invitation to Hero, offering to take him as a disciple. MC internally feels the rout descending into complete chaos. Meanwhile, Lapis quietly observes the scene, unsettled by how close Astemel's face is to Hero's. In the early morning, an elf feels a light chill in the air, yet considers it a pleasant start to the day. Hero notices the figure and wonders who this elf might be. The elf identifies himself as Astemel, and he casually announces that he intends to train Hero. Although Astemel is known as a powerful enemy, Hero now finds him turning into an unexpectedly annoying mentor. MC is familiar with Astemel only as an intimidating swordsman, so he begins questioning where that frightening aura has gone. Astemel explains that he has already requested permission from Lapis to train Hero. He then suggests that their relationship as teacher and student does not require stiff or formal language, as he prefers speaking in a more relaxed, casual manner. Hero, however, feels uncomfortable with this approach. Astemel tells Hero to address him as Shursho. Hero becomes confused, unsure how to balance Astemel's desire for casual speech with the authoritative title he insists on. If he acts overly familiar and unintentionally irritates Astemel, he fears Astemel might cut him in half, so he hesitates to act too casually. Hero attempts to pronounce Shursho, but his repeated mistakes begin to irritate Astemel. Astemel eventually refuses to respond until Hero pronounces it correctly, leaving Hero to conclude that the entire situation makes no sense. The once vigilant and hostile Astemel, who previously regarded Hero as a dangerous enemy, now sulks like someone easily offended. Astemel is 420 years old, which equates to roughly 21 in human terms, and he considers himself cute. Hero silently agrees that Astemel truly looks cute and wonders if he behaves this way around other girls as well. Hero also reflects on Astemel's usual duty of driving away men who try to approach the princess. Now, however, Astemel is asking Hero to become his disciple, which feels contradictory. When Hero finally manages a proper pronunciation of Shursho, Astemel becomes delighted, leaving Hero even more annoyed by the situation. Astemel decides to end their conversation and begin the training session. He refers to Hero as his beloved pupil, prompting Hero to wonder what Astemel intends to do next. Astemel announces that they will start with warm-ups. Hero is surprised to see Astemel bring out his device, Mumi Bohi. Astemel is equally surprised that Hero recognizes the name, correctly guessing that Hero heard it from Lapis. Hero confirms it, adding that ordinary weapons rarely receive actual names. Astemel then assumes Hero also knows that Mumi Bohi is not a device. He explains that he is not using magic at all, and therefore considers it safe. For him, performing warm-ups using sharp weapons feels completely natural. Hero admits that he does not understand the logic behind this, and asks Astemel not to impose rules that only make sense to himself. Astemel gives the signal to begin training, and Hero feels as though he is being ignored as a student. Hero reminds him that he is a complete beginner with swords, and giving him a real blade would be dangerous. Astemel relents and hands him a training sword from Alfheim. He mentions that he will use a training weapon for this session only, though he personally believes Hero would learn better through real combat. Hero suspects Astemel simply wants an excuse to play with his real sword. At dawn, the two of them begin their training. When Astemel strikes, Hero feels intense pain, realizing that if Astemel had used his real sword, his body would have been sliced to pieces. Astemel remarks that this is only the beginning. In the game, Astemel remains in the party for only a brief time, yet during that short duration, he can defeat high-level enemies with ease thanks to his broken stats and equipment, something that makes players suspect a bug. In reality, however, Hero knows he cannot expect the same kind of overwhelming power from this version of Astemel, even though he himself is unsure of the reason. After enduring several of Astemel's attacks, Hero gradually starts to follow the trajectory of Astemel's swings. The next strike, however, lands cleanly on Hero's body with the training sword, sending him crashing to the ground. Hero insists that Astemel should stop instead of continuing the assault. Astemel explains that Hero becomes careless simply because he is holding a wooden blade, and that a fight does not end merely because Hero manages to block an attack. Astemel's own combat philosophy is ruthless. He allows flesh to be cut and bones to be struck because he is the one who ultimately wins. Hero concludes that Astemel is far from normal. Astemel instructs Hero to fix his posture. Hero argues internally that if both flesh and bone are struck together, he would die instantly. Astemel casually asks Hero not to die. Hero remarks that this already qualifies as physical abuse. After several more hours of continuous training, Astemel finally realizes that Hero possesses a level of stamina that still needs significant improvement, and she mentally notes this as an important task for him moving forward. Hero, however, feels the opposite. For him, it seems more accurate to say that Astemel simply has an absurd surplus of stamina, while his own stamina stat is already nearly depleted. Despite the intense movements they have repeated for hours, Astemel shows no sign of fatigue, which makes Hero wonder whether exhaustion is a concept she even experiences. Eventually, Astemel invites Hero to take a break and continue with the theoretical portion of their training. She even acknowledges Hero's persistence in lasting this long without collapsing. The small gesture touches Hero for a moment, yet the feeling vanishes instantly when she casually reminds him that they will resume physical training after the break. The moment of appreciation dissolves, leaving him irritated once again. As they rest, Astemel asks whether Hero has decided which attribute he wants to train. Hero admits that he is still considering his options. In the structure of this game world, aside from basic stats, there is also a status enhancement system based on attributes. The console has 6 elemental categories, and players can insert attribute slots into the console. By using compatible elemental magic, these attributes can be raised further. Hero begins leaning toward the water attribute. In his mind, water is versatile when combined with other elements, making it suitable as a sub-element. However, using a sub-element would mean removing Kukumasimian, which has extremely limited slots. The thought alone frustrates him. Astemel then suggests that he train the light attribute instead. The idea surprises Hero. Astemel explains that light suits the natural flow of Hero's swordsmanship, and when combined with warp, it could create movements approaching the speed of light. Hero has no desire to use the light attribute, and Astemel questions his reasoning. The MC silently judges Hero as well, thinking that Hero barely raises the light attribute and already acts overly proud of it. As far as the MC is concerned, someone like Hero, who constantly disrupts Yuri, does not deserve to wield light at all. Astemel gently pats Hero's head and remarks that he seems to be thinking about many things at once. Hero, annoyed, mutters that if Astemel wants to pat someone's head, she should do it to Lapis instead. Hero then mentions that he wants to learn a weapon other than the sword. Astemel encourages him to share what kind of weapon he has in mind. By the time the late morning sun grows harsh, Hero is grateful because he can finally go home after almost 5 hours of training with Astemel. She states that she has something to attend to and suddenly disappears without warning. Hero is too tired to immediately return home and heads straight into his own bathroom. So he decides to stop by the training room instead, since its shower room is much closer. When Hero steps inside, the training area is completely empty. The place has essentially become nothing more than a passageway on the way to the showers, since anyone who wants serious practice usually heads straight for the dungeon. The shower room contains an entire set of 12 stalls, and realizing that he is the only one using such an overbuilt facility makes Hero feel strangely guilty. It seems wasteful to occupy something so extravagant alone. Besides Rei, the maid is also going to participate in the upcoming match, which makes Hero wonder what Astemel is trying to accomplish. Astemel explains that she happens to find both Rei and the maid while she is out buying taiyaki. Hero is baffled, thinking that the two of them are not items she can casually carry around like snacks. One of the Alpha asks whether Hero knows them, and Hero responds by saying that Rei is his younger sister. Sanjo Rei is, in fact, the next heir to the Sanjo family. Rei explains that she previously hears a strange rumor circulating within the main household. She initially dismisses it as nothing more than absurd gossip, something too ridiculous to take seriously, until she eventually witnesses the situation with her own eyes. She is shocked to see that Hero truly brings the elves into his home. Rei then questions whether Hero intends to keep the elves as personal companions or even as concubines. One of the Alpha grows irritated at the accusation and demands to know if Rei is genuinely serious, and whether she also views their princess in such a degrading way. Rei argues that elves are still elves, nothing more and nothing less. Hero adds that they are merely foolish humans from a narrow and limited world. Rei becomes annoyed and warns Hero not to act as though he holds authority over the Sanjo family, demanding that he understand his place. Hero steps in to calm the tension between the Alpha and Rei. Hero tells her that if she wants to act like a representative of the Sanjo family, then she is free to do so, but he also asks her not to speak about matters she herself cannot be certain of. Rei accuses Hero of pretending to be kind and wise, claiming he is no different from the rest of the Sanjo household. Rei eventually apologizes for interfering. She explains that her only reason for coming to Hero's home is to personally verify whether the indecent rumors about Hero are true, and she insists that she has no other intention. Hero cannot understand why the future head of the Sanjo family must personally investigate trivial rumors about him, especially since he is known within the family as a mischievous and flirtatious troublemaker living together with several girls. He even questions whether Rei feels the need to inspect their breakfast menu as well. When the maid moves to calm Rei's anger, Rei stops her and insists that a mere servant should not involve herself in the affairs of the Sanjo family. The maid falls silent and apologizes. From the beginning, Rei always behaves like this, constantly saying things that contradict her own feelings. Although Astemel brings her here, Hero is certain that there is no event in the original story where Rei visits him. Even though Rei is his sister, Hero feels uncomfortable letting a heroine from the game interact too closely with any man, so he initially wants her to finish her business and leave quickly. At the same time, simply letting her walk away without addressing anything does not feel right either. Hero eventually invites Rei to stay at his home for the night because he believes her visit is not solely about verifying rumors. He also explains that the atmosphere is tense and encourages her to become more familiar with the elves first. Rei responds with a sharp, mocking smile. She assumes that Hero is not satisfied with only the elves and now intends to touch her as well, despite their extremely close blood relation. Hero is stunned and insists that such a thing is impossible. Rei claims she has suspected for some time that Hero might eventually reach this point. The MC silently observes all of this, convinced that Hero is hated far more intensely in this reality than in the original game. The MC wonders what Hero must have done before the reincarnation for things to escalate this severely. Astemel senses that the atmosphere is heating up, and Hero blames her for the situation. Hero even imagines that because of Astemel, a war between Alfheim and the Sanjo family might break out. Astemel thinks he is exaggerating and insists that this is no more serious than a debate over the evening meal. Hero feels that Astemel treats every conflict in this world far too lightly. The Alpha then casually announce that they want curry for dinner. Hero becomes frustrated and asks them not to change the topic so easily, especially while everyone is still standing on opposite sides. Mua, however, insists that dinner must be curry, otherwise she threatens there might be a war. Hero is stunned. Astemel decides that the conversation has become too chaotic, and she calls everyone back to the subject at hand by suggesting they resume the duel. Hero responds that this is exactly the problem. The sides are only becoming more divided. Astemel reminds him that she already mentions earlier that Rei is joining to help him. Everyone then retrieves the prepared weapons. With that, Astemel declares that they are now officially ready to begin their friendly duel. Astemel begins by explaining that the match will be decided in a single determining round. If the elf side loses even once, the entire elf team will be considered defeated. Since Astemel notices a considerable gap in strength, she allows the Sanjo family's side to fight in pairs, specifically Lapis together with the two siblings. The reward for winning depends on the victor. If the Alfheim side wins, they earn the right to choose the dinner menu. The Alpha react with mild disappointment, feeling that the reward offered to them is trivial. Mua flatly states that the elves are merely guests in this household, and that being allowed to comment on the menu is already generous enough, though she insists that the dinner should still be curry. Astemel then explains the opposing reward. If the Sanjo family side wins, the incident involving Hero's accidental peeking will be dismissed entirely, and the Alpha will stop holding a grudge against him. Hero finds it outrageous that clearing his name requires wagering his life. Lapis remarks that trying to reason with Astemel is pointless since Astemel frequently forces her into all sorts of unreasonable situations. She recalls moments when Astemel made her do ridiculous tasks despite her status as a princess. Hero tries to pull Lapis back to the present, reminding her that they will be fighting soon. Rei declares that she does not have the time to join such a childish friendly match. She throws her practice sword aside, prompting Astemel to assume that Rei intends to walk away after displaying her arrogance. Rei then retrieves her weapon again, prepared to demonstrate her own definition of retreat. As the duel approaches, she instructs Hero to protect the princess, and Hero agrees. Meanwhile, Lapis excuses herself briefly before returning, fully prepared. Hero asks Rei to guard Lapis since Lapis is a princess. Lapis, slightly exasperated, points out that her royal status should already be obvious. The duel is set, Rei and Lapis against Shi, one of the Alpha. Astemel instructs both sides to prepare. Shi states that the two things she struggles with most in the world are restraining herself and looking at Rei's irritating expression. Rei internally feels the same way. The match begins. Both sides move immediately into attack. Rei initiates with her staff, yet Shi effortlessly blocks the strike with nothing more than a small knife. Shi acknowledges that Rei's thrust carries some weight. For her, a friendly duel becomes more meaningful only when treated with seriousness. Shi then advances sharply, her knife tracing a line toward Rei's head, but Rei manages to deflect it with her staff. Rei attempts a counterattack by striking with the staff, catching Shi during a moment of near carelessness, yet Shi recovers quickly and attempts to kick Rei. Rei manages to block the kick. Shi follows with another strike aimed at Rei's head, grazing Rei slightly. That brief moment of contact signals to Rei how dangerous Shi truly is. As soon as Rei begins to falter from Shi's pressure, Lapis steps forward and intercepts the next attack. She urges Rei to regulate her breathing. Rei reflects that her retreat earlier was purely reflexive. Shi's blade nearly reaches her collarbone. She begins to understand that these Alpha are far from ordinary. Hero observes the match from the side, prompting Rei to question his expression. Hero simply feels that Rei and Lapis have a real chance to win. When he asks Rei's assessment, Rei admits that under normal circumstances, she does not believe they could win. However, since both sides are not at full strength, the Alpha are restricted from using their bows, their strongest weapon, and because Lapis is present on the Sanjo side, Rei believes that they still have a possible path to victory if they use the situation well. Lapis and Shi continue exchanging blows. Eventually, Shi manages to land a strike with her knife, cutting Lapis's hand before knocking her down. Rei immediately rushes in from behind. Shi assumes that Rei has finally decided to move, and believes Rei should be grateful for the help Lapis provided. With Lapis unable to continue, the match becomes a one-on-one confrontation. As Shi steps forward to finish it, she suddenly feels resistance beneath her foot. Lapis, still conscious and refusing to accept defeat, anchors Shi's foot with her sword. She refuses to allow Shi to remove her from the match so easily. From the front, Ray closes in on SHII with determination. The pressure forces SHII into a moment of panic. In response, SHII delivers a clean slash to Ray's abdomen, while Ray simultaneously drives a forceful strike into SHI's collarbone.